it's not just this economic recent financial crisis, global financial crisis that is driving these policies. No, because if you remember, xenophobia came to the fore, became part of the European politics in the 1990s. And that was the decade of prosperity, of economic growth, of low unemployment. But it's exactly during the lush and prosperous 90s that people started to vote for extreme right parties. So what was going on there? So it's not just economic crisis. Well, the 90s were also the decade when globalization became very intensive. And what globalization does is that it intensifies all the features of capitalism. On the one hand, you have more opportunities for enrichment, for wealth, but also more opportunities for freedom for those who can profit from it. That came, however, at the price of increased risk for our investments, for our jobs. So what is the way public authority or the states responded to that is saying, well, we need to ensure that we're competitive globally. So our national economies are competitive. Therefore, let's deregularize and liberalize the economy and the markets. What came out of those policies is individual responsibilization. Citizens became responsible for everything, for finding a job, for keeping us employable, for fighting global climate change. So there is a piling up of individual responsibilization. But note that when you are responsible, when you are made to be responsible for your survival in a context of global economic uncertainty, that freedom turns into fear of freedom. And that's how we have all these pandemics of fear that are that are kind of haunting Europe. So what I call this is the fear of freedom that is pushing this discourse against immigrants, because publics, as they have accepted this globalization as a natural phenomenon, they're responding, they're demanding from the state securitization things. For instance, stop immigrants, don't accept Turkey into the European Union, more law and order, more safety in the public spaces. So we have this, what I call the order and safety agenda that is dominating both all the public discourse, the law and safety comes from. But that's as a result of that, so that that order and safety agenda kind of displaced and does away, kills, if you wish, the agenda of multiculturalism that we saw on the rise in the 80s, but also the social justice agenda of after the Second World War. One of the victims of these shifts is the left, because the left does not know how to respond to this order and safety agenda. There are two elements of this xenophobia that is raging in Europe. First, that it is shared by, it's mainstreamed in the political discourse of the left and the right, of center and extremes equally. And the second element is that it is not just a cultural xenophobia. We are not afraid for our culture and political sovereignty so much as it was in the past. Xenophobia, fear of the stranger, because he's penetrating our cultural space and messing up with it. But it is purely its own economic basis. Take this slogan, typically, it combines the two elements, the mainstreaming and the economic basis of xenophobia. In British Jobs for British Workers, it was formulated by the left government, British left government of the Labour Party. So yeah, I believe this is new, this xenophobia is new. We have to recognize it as economic xenophobia and address it as such, and not believe it is the old cultural and political xenophobia. First, we need to admit that what stands behind the fear of the other is the fact that the state has given up its responsibility for economic policy and has put the burden on the individual. So we need to push, to mobilize people to bring responsibility back to the state with policies such as even universal minimum income. So just give economic security back to the people so that they don't have to feel under pressure, under competition, and this uncertainty. Examples, job sharing. If in a context when you have economic growth without job creation, as we have been ever since the 80s, and we will still have this now economic recovery from the crisis without job creation, there are few jobs. There are many people who demand jobs. So the labor market insiders, those who have jobs, are the enemies of those who want to enter the labor market, who want to have jobs. So you need to unblock this with very serious politics, for instance, job sharing, part-timing, that is very well secure part-time jobs. Now we have an opening. Right? The crisis, it's a sort of catharsis, it's an opportunity. What worries me is that even in the middle of the biggest crisis we've had of capitalism in recent years, people are still voting for liberal parties, for the parties that embraced economic liberalism rather than for the left. So it's a moment when, if the left does not know how to address this, I think it is not the extreme right parties, but the economic liberal parties that are going to gain power in the next, over the next elections, for instance. Because people firmly believe for the moment that the only competent authority to take them out of the crisis of capitalism are the capitalists themselves. Because the left is not giving a plausible alternative. So unless the left formulates a realistic economic policy to reassure people, the next elections over the next 10 years, let's say, would be won by, paradoxically, by the parties, by liberal parties, for whom economic liberalism is the panacea that put us in trouble.